this is a driver's car. So is this, and this, as well as this. This, however, isn't. And if you want to know why, here's the explanation. The problem is it pretty much drives itself. Hold on here. There we go. It monitors throttle response, handling stuff, and it's because of this. It's not really a driver's car at all, frankly. It just isn't. The 370Z, though, ironically, is way more of a driver's car than this is. Mostly because it doesn't have tech nannies getting in the way. At least not a lot of them, for that matter. But I think that's the real problem with the GTR, is there's too much technology. Sorry about that. There's just too much technology crowding you from the real driving experience. I'm trying to fix the camera. I'm sorry, guys. There's so much technology crowding you from the core of driving experience. You're not really driving it. You're more so the passenger, just giving it directions. That's about it, because it can do the rest itself. That's why the GTR isn't really a driver's car. That's why it's not a driver's car in the same sense that this is a driver's car. Now, I know a lot of people will be frankly furious with me right now, saying, well, you can't do that. They weren't made for the same thing. They're two different classes. But hear me out. I know that the GTR, it was supposed to be, the everyday track car. It was supposed to be the everyday sports car. But I'm sorry, the Acura NSX did that way better. And, well, frankly, kind of the Audi R8 in a sense. But I'm sorry, I was reading an Edmund's long-term review on the Viper that they have, and he was saying that if he's going to get a sports car or a supercar, he wants it to do everything. And my mind immediately went to, so you want a $100,000 Corolla, or, well, in the Viper's case, a $93,000 Corolla. I'm sorry, if I buy a supercar I don't want it to compromise anything for speed. Certain exceptions apply, but I don't want it to compromise anything major. Because I buy a supercar for looks, for speed. And I don't want it to compromise anything. Certain exceptions apply, but I don't really want it to compromise pretty much anything. Just to make it that little bit more comfy on the road. Because, frankly, in the long term, I'll get used to it. And that's what I didn't like about that comment, is he was asking for a $100,000 Corolla. And that's what I didn't understand. A sports car should be able to do, it should be 50-50. Sporty, but, usable. A supercar, though, no, it should be straight up. And that's frankly what the GTR isn't. I just don't really see it as much of a driver's car. And I know a lot of people will be, a few people will probably be quite furious / cross with me right now, but it's the truth. It's not a driver's car. Oh, by the way, nor is the GTR much of a supercar either. It's just too heavy. And now, I know a buddy on a site I'm on, I'm not going to name him, but he said there's no such thing as a supercar being too heavy, and I disagree. I think a supercar shouldn't be heavy, it should be light. And I know that sort of depends on what it is, what it was made for, but the GTR is too heavy even for a sports car. I'm sorry, there is such thing as too heavy for its class. Because compared to the opposition, the GTR sits like a tank. Hashtag phone interruption. But anyway, the GTR sits like a tank in a row of Priuses. Actually, no. Let me give you a better example. The GTR sits like a tank. It sits like a tank at a Jeep convention. it's just so big and so heavy. It's too much. It's I like the GTR as a technical achievement. I think the GTR is just a clever way of the engineers saying how, look at how clever we are. Like that Proton that Jeremy drove many years back. But I like the R34 and the R33 and GTRs before as cars. Because they were cars. They weren't drones dressed up to look like a car. And that's why the GTR isn't a driver's car. There's so much it monitors. There's so much it does for you. You barely do anything for yourself. I get you can still crash it, but again, sorry, type. It's not real. The GTR just isn't a driver's car. The R35 anyway. It just isn't. I'm sorry, but the GTR is a bit like. Sorry, quiet. The TV was quiet. The GTR is like that mom that is a bit overprotective. She means well, but it's annoying because if she won't let you experience things for yourself, won't let you get an experience, learn from it. She's trying to shield you from that possible pain that that experience may give. That's what the GTR is like. I understand. It wants to protect, it's trying to be really fast and really comfortable, but and I understand that for a sports car, but it's like these days, I'm actually, this is one of my own running jokes. Thank you for interrupting me. This is one of my own running jokes these days, but it's like the joke is that sports cars and supercars are actually getting heavier than the car that they replace, and normal cars are actually getting lighter than the cars that they replace. It's weird, but it's kind of true. I mean, look at the GTR. Look at the Lamborghini Aventador. Those are good examples. But look at the new Civic. That's lighter than the outgoing Civic. Look at the Viper. That's lighter than the Gen 4 Viper. But also, look at the C7 Corvette. That's heavier. And I'm sorry, I don't understand. What I think a lot of companies can learn from is McLaren, because they used computers to make the computers independent to one another, and I think that's just genius. I personally don't have a problem with that. It means you can't tune the suspension. That's why I think it's brilliant, but at the same time, it doesn't allow you to tune the car for the suspension aspect. So that's why I think, in terms of comfort, they didn't replace the springs as such, but they replaced the anti-roll. Oh, I've been wrong this whole time. I'm sorry. I forgot that they don't replace the springs, they just replace the anti-roll bars, I believe. And while I still think that could be a problem for the touring community, because they want, if they want to add stiffer anti-roll bars, I genuinely think that that's a brilliant idea to make sports cars comfortable. I mean, look at the new Jag F-Type. That's 3,500 pounds, and I think that's too heavy. I think 3,460 pounds and under for a sports car is fine. But I think anything above that is just a bit too heavy, and I think anything over 3,600 pounds needs to go on a diet. I mean, even the Nismo isn't that much lighter, I believe, to the regular GTR. And I just don't understand, because these days we have the tech, we have the knowledge to make cars just as comfortable, or even more comfortable, but lighter. I'll give you an example. The well, more specifically, Viper Exchange. They have made a suspension system, and one of the guys at FCA has that suspension on his Viper, and it's an aftermarket system. And they say it's a big improvement. It just shows. It really shows. They say it still rides like a Viper, but it's still better now. Now, I know a lot of people, on a side note, I know a lot of people are probably like, switching between cars. Yeah, I just got bored with the GTR. But, anyway. But that just shows a bit, just hard work goes a long way. That's just, they fixed the suspension. And I mean it's a dual mode suspension. I don't mean they just fixed the compression. It's a dual mode suspension. Honestly, automakers can learn from Viper Exchange and McLaren. They can really learn from it. The Viper's lighter than the last one, and with the new suspension setup, it's probably more comfortable than any other Viper before. The new McLaren, the McLaren 12C, that's comfortable. Automakers can learn. Why is it hazy in the interior? And that's my point. Automakers can learn. Now I understand four-wheel drive will take up some of that weight. I get that. But even though I know this, I still can't forgive the GTR for its weight. It's too heavy. It just is. The Aventador, 4,000 pounds! And, by the way, if you add 2 passengers, full tank of gas, and some stuff in the trunk, that's a 2-ton car. Yeah, 2 tons! I'm sorry. Let me just make this mirror be quiet a bit. But that's too heavy. That's way too heavy. I'm sorry, there is such thing as too heavy. There just is. Look at the new Mustang. That's heavier. That's heavier than the Coyote motor Mustang. I don't know the specific code, but that's heavier than the 2010 Mustangs. Okay. And I know that's because of the suspension and a bit of the bodywork, but look at Chevy. They've made. Excuse me. They've made the new Camaro way lighter than the outgoing one, at 3,668 pounds? Something like that. That's way lighter than the outgoing one. Now, I know that that's partially due to that was a 2010 Camaro. There was a lot that could have been made lighter. I get that, but still, automakers can learn from Viper Exchange and McLaren. They really can. I'm sorry, the GTR is just too heavy. The Aventador is just too heavy. The GTR just isn't a driver's car. The GTR is just like an autonomous vehicle at a car meet. Not to the full extent, but that's what it is. The GTR is an almost ready-made autonomous vehicle. That's just what it is. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, I was being quiet so you could listen to the Miura. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. And don't forget to check out my Udemy course. Anyway, I will see you guys later.